Facebook, Instagrams, anyone can use it in the world. Red no, they're interested in studying, working abroad. If you're selling some sort of product or service, it's a very high net worth kind of audience.
All right, so hello and welcome to Your Brand, Your Business, the show where we dive into stories and strategies behind building a successful and also profitable brand. I am Marie, your host of this podcast, and I'm also entrepreneur and brand strategist. And today I'm excited to introduce our guest, Daniel Bateman, who will be sharing his expertise on B2B business, which means business to business, of course, in a bit non traditional environment, being China. Daniel, thank you so much for joining us today. Please, can you tell us a bit more about yourself? So, who you are and what is it that you are doing?
Well, firstly, thank you so much, Marie. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and I've listened to some previous episodes and I found them really insightful. So, yeah, I highly recommend your audience to go and check them out. And I'll give you a little bit of background on me. I originally came from the legal world, so I studied law at university. Part of my law degree, I came to China 14 years ago now. So came as an exchange student, and then I've pretty much never left. So I'm kind of a China guy. I am the China digital guy, the guy to go to. I'm an influencer here in China. So this is a Chinese social media face. This is not an Instagram face. So I do content on, you may have heard of Red Note, which has been very popular recently. Got 170,000 fans on there. I also do content on Douyin, so Chinese TikTok, 70,000 fans. And I do content on WeChat as well, which is the WhatsApp super app in China. And I also am an entrepreneur. So I work with a number of different clients. My entity is called BrickBridge. It's a British guy in China, and that bridge between the West and China, East and West. My biggest client is a client called Emerging Comms. So I'm their head of partnerships and consultant, kind of boots on the ground here in China. And Emerging Comms is a digital marketing and consultancy firm, very focused on B2B and activation, digital activation here in China, PR as well. So we pretty much do top of funnel sales, B2B marketing, and growing brands here in China.
Nice. What an impressive introduction. Really, I really like how you talked about your current endeavors and also who you actually are. I have a question because you said that you arrived to China 14 years ago. So, was it always your plan to go to China, or it just happened and you just felt in love from the day number one when you actually arrived?
So I'd always had a childhood interest in China. I used to watch Bruce Lee movies, in the UK, and I'd always see stuff on the BBC and in the news about how China's the next economic superpower, and I'd always had an interest in the culture and history, and it kind of left an impression on me. And then when I went to university, I knew in the first week I was never going to be a lawyer. So I studied international law at university and sat down in the lecture, and I just thought, this is not for me. I'm never going to be a judge, a barrister, solicitor, lawyer. But law is a great degree, so I didn't want to quit. And I made some Chinese friends at university, and they were telling me about China and Hong Kong and how vibrant it was. And I said, well, I've always had an interest in China as a region. And they said, well, if you like China so much, why don't you go to China? I thought, what a brilliant idea. So my law degree had an exchange program with the University of Hong Kong, and that was a great starting point, a great way to ignite my journey here in China. So I originally went as an exchange student, and then after my law degree, I got a scholarship, which not a lot of people know about. There are loads of scholarships here in China that you can study pretty much anything. And I went to a city called Tianjin, which is the port city of Beijing, and I got my Chinese up to pretty good conversational fluency level pretty much in about a
Nice.
year.
Congratulations. That's a really difficult language. I heard. I didn't try.
But you
But
must speak many languages, right?
Yes, but not Chinese.
Right. Okay.
Can you tell us more about the B2B? Because you mentioned brick bridge, also emerging comms, etc. What do you actually do when it comes to the B2B? Is it like service based, or like what kind of companies usually are you interested in, and what business you usually do with them?
At the moment, we're seeing a lot with life sciences. So that's biotech, medical equipment, any kind of research companies, CROs would be one. Also, PBSA, so student accommodations that we see around universities, those kind of professionals looking to stay accommodation, manufacturing firms, so anyone that's doing things like tubing or producing something would be one. Professional services and financial services, so it could be a capital markets firm, venture capital, but literally any company that is selling business to business and targeting could be high net worth individuals or other businesses in China. We're just seeing an explosion here in China
Mm,
right now. B2C has had quite a drop, I'd say, in China. It's not impossible to do business. If you're a brand, it could be a cosmetics brand, or you're selling clothing or some sort of tangible product. There's still opportunities here in China, but it's getting more and more challenging. The local competition is rife. But as a B2B company, you're coming into China really at an unfair advantage. And that's what you want to
mm.
be in with China. That is the secret formula to China is having an unfair advantage, which most B2B brands have.
Mm. So it's a lot about, for example, collaboration of two different businesses together to coming up with the new service, new product, something innovative. It's no longer really focusing on the end consumer, but rather coming together B2B and doing business together as two entities, let's say.
Exactly. So it could be a company that's looking for distributors or looking for other research partners, really to get the word out there. But we're just seeing a huge rise in companies coming to
Mm,
China. There's been almost like a new wave of interest in China literally in the last month. So you've seen things with Red Note, the TikTok refugees. You've also seen just an interest in China, which has been um, a really exciting time for me in my business because I've seen the rise and I've always promoted China as a country to really do business with so much opportunity, and it's great to see a lot of companies from all over the world coming in, even the US. We're seeing a lot of interest in US despite the tariffs. So it's a really great time to enter and also tap into this market.
mm. Yeah, I'm mainly asking because actually, my brother he has an e-shop and he's doing with China that he's actually like importing the products from China and then he's reselling it here in Czech and Slovak market. So just asking about the trends because then I can also give him some tips if he will be watching this episode. But talking about the TikTok refugees and you being on Red Note, WeChat, and other really popular Chinese social media. What trend do you see right now with the TikTok? So like when there is coming ban in the US of the TikTok for those who might not know from our audience. Is there a trend like that, for example? Because what I see here in Instagram and LinkedIn, people are trying to accommodate people from TikTok on the new platforms. They are telling them, okay, just keep calm. If you did it on TikTok, you can do it here. Just keep going with your niche. And these are the few tips that you can do. What trends do you currently see with this TikTok refugees?
Mm. So the first thing is TikTok. I don't think they'll ever ban it. There's too much money in that platform, to just ban it, or maybe it'll be sold off in the US. And obviously TikTok Shop is huge in the US. With Red, what I always say to people is it's the easiest platform to scale on in the world. If I created a Facebook or a Instagram account today, I would find it very challenging, despite my expertise and what I do, to scale that kind of platform. And everybody wants more fans, more likes, more comments, more engagement. With Red, yourself, you could post this podcast or the content that you're doing. I've seen some of the stuff you're doing on LinkedIn, which is superb. It would blow up in China because Chinese audiences really want to find out about the West. They want to
Mm,
find out what's going on. They have that inquisitive mind, which is really, really great. The other thing I'll say about Chinese audiences is they're really nice. So the worst criticism I get is Mr. Bean, which is not bad as a criticism, right? If I put stuff on TikTok or Instagram, I get people commenting on the way I look, or it's a nice audience. So Red was actually, just to give you a very brief history in less than 30 seconds, essentially they kind of saw the Instagram model and created something very similar. And it was actually originally for aunties, so kind of older Chinese ladies here in China, that was exchanging shopping ideas and advice on different makeups and products that they were buying. And it's become this phenomenon. So the other thing about Red No is whatever you've created before, you could repackage that
mm,
onto Red Note very easily. And I will say this as a platform. I mean, good luck contacting Facebook and Instagram and speaking to their team. But I've got a great relationship with Red Note. They're very open as a team, to speak to their team,
interesting.
say, oh, that's imagine having a contact at TikTok that was giving you advice on what to do. So I think whether you're a person building a brand or a company or a school or anything, a university, you can really, an NGO, I've seen NGOs on there as well, you can grow very, very easily. And the biggest trend I'm seeing, obviously, is this migration coming over,
Mm,
but also audiences, even more audiences are coming on. So it's not just the creators coming on. You've got to think it's the more Chinese audience coming on, but it's also Western audience. What doesn't get said about Red Note is Red Note is a very affluent platform. So the audience on there, they're open minded, they're interested in studying, working abroad, they've got money, right? So if you're selling some sort of product or service, it's a very high net worth kind of audience. Whereas I guess Facebook, Instagrams, anyone can use it in the world. No matter where you are on the poverty line or how rich you are. But Red, no, it's very focused towards kind of first tier cities in China. So people have got money on that platform,
mm,
and it's a nice audience. They engage with your content, and they want to see foreigners on there. They want to see foreigners on there, and it's not from a security or stealing data or anything like that. It's genuinely because Chinese have an inquisitive mind, which is
mm.
what I've always been attracted to with this culture in this country. People are genuinely interested in you. In the UK, no one's interested in me when I walk down the street, right? I go to Chinatown, London, all of a sudden people are like, hey, I see your content. So it's as a foreigner, being embraced by a country like that is a special feeling as well. It's what we all want, right? We want to be, build something special and then see it growing on the platform.
Mm. So everybody in Europe can, for example, download Red Note or WeChat, and they can start to post on these applications if they want. Because I never actually tried. I don't know why, but I thought that these applications, they're just not available here in Europe, or that there might be like restrictions in where you are located. Because I actually had, before I joined our podcast today, I had a problem with one Belgian application, because my family is located in Czechia. And my mom, she's using one application, and the application gave her error that she's currently in Czech Republic, so she cannot use this application, which is only for the Belgian audience. And we are in the European Union, and it's like, I don't know, like 8 hours by car from each other, from these two different countries. But it's just so annoying. So I was thinking that maybe like these applications are only for Chinese citizens or like people being in China. But definitely after this podcast, I will try to download it and look what is out there.
Mm. Certainly. I mean, I will say with WeChat, sometimes there is some verification, and rightly so. Like, they don't want everyone using the platform. They want people that are genuinely interested in China or has some interest in China. So sometimes you may need to have a Chinese friend or someone like me that's on the ground here in China, and to help you with verification and codes and things like that. And it makes sense. It just keeps things more secure. But yeah, with a lot of these platforms, you can sign up like you would with Facebook or TikTok or Instagram quite easily, and yeah, just start interacting with the platform. And the great thing about these platforms now is that the translation in them is incredible. So you don't have to speak Chinese. It does help, but the actual translating part, you can just pretty much put stuff in English, and
Mm,
then obviously I can see with all these like CapCut and all these editing tools now, you can translate into Chinese. It's not 100% yet, the AI. The AI is still working. But I will actually, on another tangent, obviously you've seen recently with DeepSeek, which is the Chinese version of ChatGPT. Their translation model is a lot better than ChatGPT because it's built
mm,
on a Chinese model. So if you want to translate English into Chinese, DeepSeek would be the better version. For research, some things are probably better with ChatGPT because some things are blocked and sensitive in China. But the AI is getting very, very good with translation right now. So to use these platforms, also they have their built-in translation features, so it's quite accessible.
mm. I actually didn't know that DeepSeek is Chinese. I know that there is now big boom here in Europe and US about DeepSeek, that everybody is migrating to it from ChatGPT because it's open source. So everybody currently loves it. They try to get there. People just cannot like register because there are so many registrations at the same time. But I didn't know that it's Chinese. That's interesting. I already tested it actually yesterday, and I was missing the voice recognition because I really like to speak from time to time with my ChatGPT. Like you go for a walk, you are like
Mm,
just inside your head, and then you just put in your headphones ChatGPT, and you start to brainstorm while like speaking with ChatGPT, so that he asks you questions, you ask him question, etc. And DeepSeek doesn't have this function, which I was quite missing when I was testing it yesterday. But I guess we will see this evolution pretty soon, because how the AI is evolving is pretty impressive. I have a question which is about misconceptions. So, what are some of the biggest misconceptions Western brands have when trying to enter the Chinese market, and how they can adapt their strategies for success?
well, I think it begins with preparation and mindset. So a lot of brands, and I see this with British companies in particular, is they come in with a British mindset. Now that doesn't work in China, right? You have to localize, right? And myself, I had to come to this country. You're a guest in a country that you enter, so you should respect its customs and its cultures. So don't change yourself completely as a brand or a company, but retain that essence, because that's your unfair advantage coming to China with any brand, is you've got something that they probably don't have, right? Whether it's a historic name that's got heritage behind it. But I see a lot of brands coming in. They come in thinking they can do things on the cheap. Like, you've got to have a decent budget when you come into China, and you've got to have, I guess, to use a bit of a political analogy with the Chinese government, is you've got to have a 5-year plan. You can't try China for 3 months, which I've seen with many companies. Oh, let's try it for 3 months or even a year. It's like, no, you're either in or you're out. You can't just test China. So, big misconception is brands come in very arrogantly and think, well, my brand does so well in Europe or the UK or US, so it's going to do well in China. No, you'll get eaten alive here. So, coming into China, you've really got to be prepared. You've got to have a decent budget. You've also got to be open with your pain points. What are your pain points when it comes to coming to China? Is it potentially you're getting some clients from China, but you want more, and you're trying to work out, okay, how do I actually convert that audience into real customers? So there's a number of things that I see, but I think it's the pre coming to China, which I see the most. And come to China is a big one. A lot of brands that are looking at China, they don't even make the trip. And there's so many free visas here. You can stay here for a couple of weeks now. I think the US and the UK are one of the only countries in the world they don't allow that right now. But pretty much you're from any country in the world right now. You can come here for 2 weeks. Come and see China. Come and see what's happening here. You know, the innovation, the tech, meet the local people.
Mm.
It's probably one of the safest countries in the world. It's everybody's friendly. I've never had any issues here. So it's one of those, you know, you got to really understand the market, but you can't do it alone. Another misconception is that I can do this alone, or I can just do this with an inbuilt Chinese team. I'll just hire some Chinese people and have that in-house team. No, you've got to have an outsider. So you've got to have an agency that knows what they're doing, has the case studies to back it up, that you like them. You've got to know what they like, and know what how each other tick. So it's not being afraid to do this with an outside partner that knows the market. Um, and also being a little bit, hesitant with China, relying too much on what's happening in the news. I mean, a lot of the stuff I see on the BBC News is wrong about China. I know because I live on the ground here, right? I see what's happening every day. So you don't really understand the country until you come and you visit and you meet. So um, now more than ever is the time to come to China, because um, there's just this explosion of interest in both China and the West, coming together. So, um, not, and I think another misconception with China is, oh, it's a scary market. Oh, it's communism. Oh, spooky. It's like, no, like there's opportunities wherever you look, and I think the life I've had here, I've been very lucky and afforded wonderful opportunities, and I would love to see more brands, more B2B companies entering and really taking advantage of the market here, because you're always coming in at an unfair advantage.
Mm. I really like what you said about that you should know the market, that you should have some agencies, some outsider there who can actually tell you like how to behave and not be just arrogant when you are coming. I can do it alone. I just came from UK and I am here now, and I will not respect, for example, your culture, traditions, etc. What I really like how they are doing it in London, because London is investing a lot in attracting the investors and attracting the businesses, and they do a lots of marketing campaigns around come to do your business in London. There is a lots of different agencies that are actually like putting a lots of money in the marketing for it, but I didn't see a lot in China, or like that I would be attracted or like targeted by the advertisement, like come and do business in China, for example. I see a lot, for example, Dubai, Singapore, I see London, also some countries in Europe. So I see that I'm targeted, but I never got targeted by China. So like, is it that they want to just keep it slow, they have different strategy, or how come that they are doing it differently, or
Yeah, I think it does relate to Chinese culture. Chinese culture, they're generally quite humble, right? It's a humble culture. And when you speak to them as well. So there's an element of that. It comes from Confucian times, where they don't want to be all song and dance and do these glitzy YouTube videos. Oh, come to our country and invest. I mean, it's a case of they also don't want a barrage of companies coming into China, right, as well. And I think that actually creates quite an interesting opportunity, because I wouldn't enter Dubai right now. Way too saturated.
Mm.
I've saw so many people become agents, property agents, and um, it's interesting what's happening there. And I know they're building casinos and things like that now. But with China, they don't need to be all come and invest in us. There are agencies that do that, but it's more localized. And I guess you've also got to think that on LinkedIn, you're not going to see those big ads. You've got guys like me that's kind of promoting China in a way. But it is an interesting thought that actually I hadn't considered that. There's not massive ads about invest in China, right? Because I think they know how big they are, and if you're a company that sees the opportunity, then you're going to go for it. So you're seeing a lot more on the tourism side now. So particularly with Shanghai and some of these places in China, you are seeing a little bit more of a push to get foreigners to at least visit. But yeah, I think it does come down to the culture and the fact that China's not really struggling to get companies to come here, right? I mean, the UK right now is really it's not the UK I knew in the 90s.
Mm.
You know, I mean, there's talks that it might go bankrupt. So, and that we could talk all day about why that is, but um, you know, China's got a lot of ambition, and it's whether you want to be a part of that and utilize that market, that 1.3 billion people, and build something special.
Yeah, I also have an impression that they know how economy works because economy is one of the wheels of the country. They know how economy works, but they like to keep things under control. So, like, yeah, we will do business with you. There are our terms. You will notice how authentic and how great we are doing stuff. But here are the terms, and either we agree on this or not. Like, it's a I have an impression when I'm also speaking with you, also what I know from, for example, different Asian countries, how they are also speaking about China, etc. That it seems to me that they know how business works, but they want to also have it under control with how they are keeping the stuff working there.
And there's some truth in that, and absolutely, why not? I sometimes wish the UK would do more of that kind of stuff. Like, no, you're not going to assimilate into British culture and the way we do things. No, you know, if I wanted to go to Saudi Arabia and just enforce my views on them, no, it wouldn't be allowed. So I think that gets blurred a little bit in the UK with human rights and things. It's like, well, hold on a second. I'm coming in as a guest, and I should respect that country's laws and the way they do things. I think the other interesting thing about that now is you're seeing a lot of Chinese companies wanting to do business outside of China. So they're wanting to do business and they're having to learn that as well. They're having to learn that the way we do things in the West, sometimes we're very direct. You know, when we shake someone's hand, we're firm. But the way they shake hands is it's you're humble. You know, so it
Mm,
might feel like a dead fish when you shake someone's hand in China. It's like it's not a it's they're being respectful. So cultural communication is so key. And you are right. There is this idea of it's on their terms, absolutely. But you've got negotiating power with China, and if you present a no-brainer kind of deal with a Chinese investor, B2B partner, then it doesn't necessarily, you know, you can meet consensus. It's not always on their terms. So um, that would be another misconception sometimes that you know, Chinese are not very forgiving with business. I've actually had
mm,
the opposite. I feel dealing with the Chinese um, is speed. You know, they
mm,
see an opportunity, they go for it. My biggest beef I've had sometimes with the UK in particular is things are slow. And even I've got a few German clients who I love. I love German clients because they're very loyal. But in the beginning, culturally, they want to pick apart the engine and they want to have a look in. The Chinese are I don't want to generalize too much, but my experience with Chinese business is they see an opportunity and they go for it. You
mm.
know, it's very entrepreneurial. It's very let's take a risk, let's go for this. So it's yeah, it's a case of every country. I wish the UK was sometimes a bit more like China, and sometimes the stuff that happens in China, I wish it was a bit more like the UK. It's finding that equilibrium.
Yeah, this is why we are here. And if you are listening to us right now, take that risk. Take a bit from the mindset of the Chinese spirit here in the business. Take the risk that you were thinking about for years, sometimes even decades. and just go ahead and try it, because we learn the most from the failures at the end. And in the worst case, you will fail and you will try again. I mean, this is the life. So we should get a bit of speed into our mindset. And also, like, how we are doing things here in Europe is also like, when you are trying a business in Europe, it's like everybody is like putting you down, like, yeah, sure, your little thing and stuff like this, until you don't have like millions on the account and you are not in the news. Like, everybody is like putting you, like in the place, like, yeah, sure, like the little stuff that you are doing, I know you should be poor because you are entrepreneur and things like this. I mean, just realistically speaking, like in Asia, it seems to me just more realistic. Like, yeah, just try, go for it, like use the opportunity, like launch it, try it, repeat it. If it's successful, of course, you don't want to repeat the failure. But speaking about the trends and also about the branding strategy, so are there, for example, some differences in the key elements of successful brand strategy that resonates with Chinese consumer in comparison with the Western culture? So, what are the trends currently?
Yeah, so that's a really great question when it comes to, I guess, branding and marketing with China. And again, it depends on the product, the service, whatever it is. But I'll give you a great example, which would be, let's say, comparing Christmas with Chinese New Year, right? Both happened recently, two very different kind of branding exercises. Christmas is about presents, it's about family, it's about giving. The similarity with China is family, but Chinese New Year is about money, right? It's like, we wish you good fortune, we wish you good health, go out and be rich. So it's it's a lot of family advertising, but it's also this idea of being aspirational. Now, Christmas isn't about being aspirational; it's about you've spent your money on the presents, right? So with Chinese marketing and branding right now, you've got this idea of going back to the traditional roots. So look at, it's the year of the snake right now. It's using um, ancient historical poetry and idioms and things like that about the snake. But also, you're seeing this, which is does apply. It does attract that younger audience and older audience. But what you're also seeing in a lot of the market in China is things like games.
Mm,
So you're seeing mobile gaming in order to attract users, to attract content, giveaways as well. Christmas, I don't really think it's about giveaways, is it? But Chinese marketing, particularly around Chinese New Year, is about giveaways and red pockets and money, and you sign up to this. So it's a lot more of an interactive process. Whereas I'd say Christmas is pretty much, you either buy the presents, you get them online, or maybe you watch a bit of TV, right? But they really put a lot of emphasis on Chinese culture, new and old. I think you may have seen in the news, they're the robots dancing. Did you see that in the news with on their spring gala, which is this big TV show that they have every year? It's called Chunwan in Chinese. It was big news. These robots that were
mm,
dancing and spinning plates almost. So it's this bringing the new and the old together, right? It's about innovation every year. With Christmas, I don't really see it innovating. It's pretty much the same marketing I had when I was a kid, right? So I think to relate it to any brand or company coming to China is like, you've got to be adaptable every year. You're up against local partners, but also you're having to constantly better yourself every year. You have an element of that in the West, but you probably have Coca-Cola does its classic Father Christmas advert, and you might have some other brands doing their classic kind of Christmassy adverts. But China, when it comes to marketing, is about being adaptable, giving something the audience really they've never seen before, and making it very fun.
mm.
Making it interactive for that audience. So um, that's one trend that a lot of brands have to be aware of. Is it's a fruitful market, but you've also got to be on your toes with China. You've got to um, constantly be branding, because that audience. I think if you were to do studies, and I think they have actually, on attention spans, particularly with Chinese audiences, is if you put them in front of a phone, you've got to grab their attention the first second. I know in the
Mm.
West usually it's like one, two, three, swipe, but in China it's like one swipe, right?
Well,
So that audience is, it's got a shorter attention span, so you've got to grab their attention even more. It's like small children using TikTok nowadays. Like if you don't grab their attention, they're going to swipe. But in China, it's got to be glitzy, it's got to be glamour, it's got to be really engaging from the offset.
mm. I really like what you said about that they are not comparing new to old, but they are rather appreciating both, like how beautiful the old and the new is, so that they are taking the time for it to really like tell the stories and things like this. In West, it seems to me rather that we think throughout the whole year that the old is obsolete. We don't really necessarily show the respect. And then during the traditional holidays, we say, okay, now it's the time to appreciate the old, to spend the time with the family, and to, for example, show the appreciation by buying the present. But throughout the whole year, you are rather in the new, in the innovative, and everything what is, for example, older than 30 years, it's already like passe, it's taboo, it's not going